Welcome back to the Washington Reporter podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Wohl. Ernie Veritimos here. Ernie, how's it going? What's cracking?
What's cracking? I think Democrats' heads are cracking. I'm waiting for their heads to explode.
Well, it's happening all around us. I woke up this morning and, I try to start off my mornings without overdosing on fake news. You know what they say? It's not good to consume alcohol or any other toxin for that matter in the morning in particular. So I try to stay away from it. But this morning, the apoplexia was at peak levels as it normally is. I wonder how these people do it. I mean, you got to wake up mighty early to do this, and you must have to take stimulants or something. And the big controversy this morning is that Trump, I guess, is preparing to deport a former U.S. ambassador to Russia. He's planning to send him back to Russia to let Putin's KGB torture him and then put him in a gulag to die.
I don't remember him saying that.
I don't remember him saying that either. So I had to look into it and study it up some more because I figured, my God, Trump is getting ready to sounds authoritarian. So here's just a couple of clips to get everybody up to speed. This is the way the format that we like to run this podcast. If you're joining us for the first time, we like to start in the other dimension that is the fake news world, show you the most insane clips over there, and then move backwards. And by the end of it, have elucidated these topics such that you can walk away and feel that you understand them. You're not panicked. You're not scared. You're not worried, but you understand what's going on. You understand the tactics. And most of the time, you have a pretty good idea of what's coming next. So
my brain's hurting. Have to go into critical theory again.
Here's the first clip. They're going insane. We'll just let him say it for themselves.
Was what he did treason?
We all know that Vladimir Putin is holding something over Donald Trump. We do not know what it is, but we know it must be something extraordinary.
We all know it must be something extraordinary, I guess. I mean, here it is again.
Was what he did treason?
We all know that Vladimir Putin is holding something over Donald Trump. We do not know what it is.
Well, then how could you know he's
living in opposite world know this?
No, but let's just follow that.
Critical theory. This is critical theory.
How could you know that he's holding something over his head if you don't know what it is that he's holding over his head? By definition, it's like it's a logical fallacy to begin with.
But we know it must be something extraordinary because no rational politician, no rational president would act this way if he weren't being blackmailed on some level.
Well, that may be true, and we have to end.
What Mr. Trump did yesterday was to betray the women and men of the FBI, the CIA, NSA, and others.
Oh, we can trust him, Brennan, yes.
Strange and disturbing, and again, heartbreaking that President Trump threw out the values that were the basis of the Helsinki Commission when he was cowering before President Putin.
Come on, spit it out.
Yesterday.
Spit it out, Nancy.
Instead of standing up for our democracy and democratic principles, President Trump cowered in the presence of Putin, and the entire world watched and saw that. Trump.
Yeah, that's what I saw too.
Standing up for our democracy. What is our democracy? Is it the weekly vote at the local bowling club about who's going to be the president? I mean, I don't know what democracy she's talking about. Last I checked, the U.S. wasn't a democracy, but I don't know where she's getting all this. It's ludicrous to me. But this morning, they ramped it up to even a higher level and let us know that, indeed, President Trump is planning to take Michael McCall, the former U.S. ambassador to Russia, really esteemed spy master. He ran some really crazy operations out of the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. And he's planning to send him back to Russia because he was mean to him on CNN in his commentary. And so now Trump's going to send him to Moscow to go die in a Siberian gulag after being tortured and intimidated by Vladimirovich Putin. Here's the clip.
Today, the White House said that it was considering a request made by the Russian government to hand over to Russia for questioning America's former ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul.
It's going to hand him over.
The proposed exchange would allow Special Counsel Robert Mueller to witness interviews of Russians indicted for meddling in the 2016 election, something President Trump described Monday as, quote, an incredible offer. The White House says it's entertaining the idea.
It was the most authoritarian statement that has come out of this White House to date.
What statement? What statement? There is no statement. They made this up. It is a patent fantasy. It's not true. It never happened. President Trump never talked about sending any Americans back to Russia. Whatever this means, it's nonsense. This debate that they're having about whether or not President Trump should send people back to Russia, deport them to Russia.
Well, the idea must have emerged somewhere. Do you have any idea about that?
Well, I think that it's a narrative probably written up from the good folks at Media Matters and the Southern Poverty Law Center. And
probably BuzzFeed had something
the
to do with
Center
it.
for the Free American Democracy. All these groups that are backed by
Mother Goose.
Mother Goose, or what's his name, Greg Simmons, or that GS something. I forget what it stands for. George Soros, right? That guy. Yeah, all these groups that are backed by George Soros, they promote these ideas, these narratives, and they're quite literally injected into the news cycle every day. So this is their latest attempt. Their latest attempt is, they think that they can just lie. And you know what it tells me, Ernie, because you mentioned to me before the show a new poll. What is this poll? This survey, I guess is a better word. This survey. What is?
So it's a Gallup poll. It came out yesterday. Actually, I think it came out today. And it was, what are the top things on Americans' minds? And of course, what do you think the top thing is on Americans' minds? I mean, it's pretty obvious.
Russian
it's immigration.
Collusion? Oh, no, it's immigration.
Yeah. You said Russian? No. Well, where do you... Okay, immigration was top. So where do you think Russia ranked?
Oh, it must have been next. It must have been neck and neck, right? I mean, people...
No.
Oh,
a little bit further down the list.
Was it dead last,
see,
maybe?
The next thing was dissatisfaction with the government and poor leadership. So immigration was at 22%. Dissatisfaction was at 19%. Then came race relations at 7%. And then unifying the country was a very big issue. And then the economy in general, then healthcare rated at about 3%. And then ethics, morals, religious, and family decline, that came in at 3%. You know where Russia was? It didn't make the list.
Oh, hey. That's not good. Ooh, man, that hurts. That hurts. That sounds like...
fake news.
Oh, man, that's what Hillary's going to have to say about it. Yikes. It didn't even make the list.
The mainstream media, that is 90% of their content every night, and 24
Ernie,
hours a day.
What does that tell you? Just like we've been talking about, CNN has about 800,000 viewers a day. Most of them, as you so keenly mention, are TVs that run in gyms all day, regardless of whether anybody's watching, or in airports, or in lobbies, or in elevators.
That's right.
And so
which
they
most
don't have
people
the
are asking the attendees to change the channel to something else.
Right. Most of the time, there's no volume; it's worthless. But they don't have very many viewers. The people that are still watching CNN and MSNBC are the most political people. There's some right wing people like us who watch.
There's some senile people too.
There's some senile people who are out to lunch on it. But
my father-in-law, he's getting up. He's 90 years old, and he's starting to lose his memory a bit. And he'll sit down all day and watch CNN.
Yeah, it's really not healthy, but it's watched by really very few people. And what that Gallup survey tells you is that people aren't listening to the media, because if you listen to the media and if you trust what's coming out of their mouth, you would need to be direly concerned about the prospects of dying in a Russian meddling incident around this country. I mean, you would be actually afraid. You might want to even order yourself a helmet to protect yourself from all of the Russian meddling that's taking place everywhere. I mean, apparently now we need to be concerned because the Russians are sending, cute but not hot Russian women over here to do something very evil, Ernie. Have you heard about this new outbreak? They just busted somebody this week. The Russians are so evil and so conniving and so absolutely bent on undermining our way of life that they're actually sending over people to support the Second Amendment. A civil right, and extol the virtues of an armed population and people being armed and protecting their rights and having independence from the government and not being crushed by the government. The Russians, so evil, so sadistic, so bent on undermining our Constitution and our way of life that they're actually sending people over here, apparently, to support the Second Amendment and Second Amendment groups and the NRA.
Yeah, you're talking about that redhead, Martina Buterin, I think it is.
Butina, yeah, Maria Butina. She is the Russian who is arrested and being held in solitary confinement because she's such a great risk.
The FBI actually knew that she was a spy, and while she was working the NRA, and I guess she was trying to sell or get information for sex or sell sex for information. I mean, that's the story that I heard.
Well, she wanted a job at a think tank that was related to Second Amendment matters, and she was willing to, deal out some tang to get it.
But I'm confused. I didn't get that she actually did anything.
No, they didn't actually find her doing anything. They just said that she had, quote unquote, what they describe as contacts with Moscow.
Oh, you know what? She looks really good in a cowboy hat and short shorts and a Beretta.
Why wouldn't they send her a cease and desist and say no more contacts with Moscow or you can leave? I mean, it just seems to me to be overkill to round her up and put her in solitary confinement like you would do to an Islamic terrorist or something. Oh, no, you can't do that for them. You have to put them on a work release program, right? According to Obama. I mean,
give them a house.
You talk about this. I mean, you think it back to the Boston bombing. And, those guys were interviewed by the FBI 3 separate times. What were their names? The brothers, the Tsarnaev brothers. The Tsarnaev brothers were interviewed by the FBI 3 separate times at FBI offices, and the FBI let them go. No stress on it, no issue with it, and then finally hunted them down after they had killed and injured dozens of people. Now what we're looking at is a situation where the FBI is with the greatest level of haste, with the greatest level of resources and priority. They are going after people who are committing the evil act known as supporting the NRA because maybe they had a contact or a phone call with what's only described in the indictment as Moscow. A contact with Moscow. I have contacts with Moscow. Full disclosure, I talk to Russian people all the time. Do business with them, know them. I don't know what is there some law? Am I missing something? Should I consult an attorney? I mean, I don't know. You're not allowed to talk to Russian people anymore. I guess so.
I have to admit that I do too.
They didn't make a very convincing case that she was some kind of spy looking to steal our nuclear technology or God forbid, commit some sort of evil act against an American company. Or
well, that's what I'm trying to get to. I have not seen a single charge that she actually did anything.
No, it looks like she went to the NRA convention, hung out, took a selfie with Rick Santorum, and that's that. But they said she moved through GOP circles. But if you actually want to understand where this is going, Ernie, where this all leads up to, what's the crux of this? Because people are probably listening and they're thinking, okay, what's the takeaway? Get to the point. Here's the takeaway. Here's the main point. Why did this come amid that? Well, they're running all these narratives to try to bungle U.S.-Russian relationships. Vladimir Putin is working with Trump to stifle the deep state. I'm just going to lay it out on the table and tell everybody. I won't get into specifics, but they're working together to squash these deep state dirtbags. And one of the things that I've been talking about for weeks is how the deep state is planning to come in and tell you, hey, you can't trust the midterm election results that gave Republicans a victory. You can't do it. The results were illegitimate. We're going to have to overturn them and take over. Well, today they just hours ago, made their first step towards that. The DOJ and Rod Rosenstein has announced a program where Americans are going to be able to subscribe to the program, and they're going to send out public press releases documenting instances along the way of Russian interference. That way they can let you know. I mean, here's the headline from the Washington Post right in front of me. Justice Department plans to set up public alert system to alert Americans of foreign operations targeting.
Oh, is my phone going to start buzzing or something?
Yes. No, that's exactly right.
Butana, if she gets within a quarter mile of me, I'll get an Amber Alert.
Yes. And the Justice Department plans to alert foreign operations targeting U.S. democracy. So if you are in a particular district and they want to take out a sensitive Republican GOP candidate, all they're going to do is they're going to send out an Amber Alert. It's basically a push notification that's going to tell you, alert, the Russians want Mark Meadows to win. Be alerted. It's not like we warned you about this. What was it? 3 weeks ago we warned people about this? I said they're setting it up. Ernie, yep. I know these people. I know different people at the FBI, at the LA office. I know these law enforcement types. They tell me all this stuff.
I just did I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just did a search on Maria's name and then looked at images. I'm just thinking that if she's a spy, she's the most openly and overt person. I mean, she's got like hundreds, maybe thousands of pictures here that are on the internet.
Yeah. I mean, she does, and she went to.
Is this how spies act? I thought they were supposed to be kind of covert.
No, she went to a press conference with Trump. And she said to the president, at this time it was during the campaign, she says, in her Russian accent, she says, what do you plan to do with U.S.-Russia relations? He says, well, we got to be tough on Russia, but I think we can get along. And they're angry about that now. It's really...
Yeah, that makes no sense.
It's really crazy to me.
That's a bad thing? It's a bad thing?
She doesn't have any of the credentials of a spy. I mean, she's 29. She didn't go to, the Harvards of the world. She didn't go to the Ivy League schools. She really doesn't have any of the makings of a spy, even a good, honeypot, which is what they try to make her out to be. She's not been convicted of anything. Innocent until proven guilty is what we're a fan of on this show. No matter who you are, Peter Strzok or Maria Butina. But the organization, the evil organization that she worked for was known as, very unoriginal name, Right to Bear Arms. Sounds like she was really trying to undermine our country, doesn't it, Ernie? I mean, she wants you to have guns. That's, oh, God. Put an end to her. She's supporting the U.S. Constitution. In fact, it's interesting because I looked into her organization in Russia, and Putin doesn't like her, actually. They're trying to shut this down. They don't, they're kind of okay with right to bear arms. It's something that they're pushing in Russia, but Putin's not ready for it yet, and they kind of have it, but it's not really there. It's a whole interesting thing. There's plenty of Vice documentaries about it that I think people should watch. I'll link to them in the show notes if I remember. Hopefully I will. I'll take note of it here. But she runs a Second Amendment organization. It's not like she's running some operation to figure out the location of missile defense or traditional spy stuff.
She's not being covert.
No, she's not being covert, and she's not doing anything that would seem overtly adverse to U.S. interests. And for the very fact of treachery or spycraft, you would have to assume that...
But I don't know, Jacob. She's Russian, and she has guns. Holy crap. What a combination.
What a combination is right. I mean, maybe she also wants people to stand for the national anthem, and somehow that's tied.
She hangs around with Republicans.
Oh, man. Well, Hillary Clinton had a note for us on this, and I think her warning, her very astute, seasoned, experienced words on Russia are important for us to take note of today. So I've got a clip. It's a public service announcement from Hillary Rodham Clinton, the former senator, Secretary of State, First Lady, true professional. She wants to give us a warning about Russia. Here it is.
I mean, we want very much to have a strong Russia because a strong, competent, prosperous, stable Russia is, we think, in the interest of the world.
Oh, my God.
Geez, okay. Yikes. Wow. Yeah, I remember Obama saying, too, to Mitt Romney, I don't have the clip, but in the 1980s called, they want their foreign policy back. Mitt, Russia's not the biggest threat. Al-Qaeda is.
Oh.
Remember that?
Wow.
Ooh.
I'm confused now.
I'm confused. But, of course, this is, like all other things for the Democrats, just a haphazard attempt to maintain power. That's all this is. That is all this is. There's nothing really to be had here. Whether we're talking about, you can boil everything down to that. I mean, it's fun to talk about the Russian spy and the Trump-Putin summit and the gulags and the kids in cages, and we talk about these narratives and we unpack them. That way, you don't get ensnared in this garbage.
Well, the thing that really bothers me is that the Democrats had all these positions, the leaders had all these positions that we're taking now, and now they've flipped, and they're at such a level of vitriol and incredulousness and insanity. I mean, they're talking about Trump committing treason. They're committing you. They're actually saying that you're committing treason as well, right, Jacob?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm proud. In a way, I'm proud. I feel like, Ernie, I know that we will have broken through when every single day I have invariably the mainstream media attacking me. I mean, this is what you see with not Ben Shapiro, but you see it with Alex Jones. Every day, without fail, they have something out on Alex Jones. We look up his name on any given day. It's almost like Justin Bieber. No matter what, you look him up, there's always 10 news stories. And it's the mainstream media attacking him. Daily Beast, Hill, Mediaite, the Washington Times, Florida Politics Blog, Hello Magazine, Paste Magazine, CNET, CNET. I thought CNET was like phone reviews. I don't know where they got into attacking Alex Jones.
Well, Zucky Baby over there said that he's going to allow InfoWars to remain on Facebook, but they're going to censor him. Yet they're promoting some kind of webinar or some kind of event with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the communist from New York.
Yes, indeed.
So that's okay. We can promote communism, but we can't promote anybody that is a patriot.
Yeah. Well, I've got on the same day, I've got The Atlantic, Right Wing Watch, Twitchy, Daily Dot, and The Washington Post, all coming after me, claiming that I have committed treason. I mean, in the case of The Washington Post and The Atlantic, claiming that I
don't know, man. Off with your head.
I've committed treason. Remember,
off with your head.
These people support free speech.
Submit.
These people support free speech, but if you disagree with their position on Russian foreign policy, U.S.-Russia relations, you've committed treason. I mean, it just doesn't get old, you know. And
just this past week, I mean, they've compared what Trump did at the summit to the Holocaust, to Pearl Harbor, to 9/11. I mean, how bad can they make? As I was saying to you earlier, you know, before the show, I said it's reminding me of this old movie called Scanners, where these guys can get into other people's head and then make them explode. This is what's going to happen, I think, as we approach the election. There are going to be like popcorn. Democrats' heads are going to start exploding on national TV. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I found a clip on Mueller, by the way. You know how sometimes there's these video clips, Ernie? I don't know if you've noticed this, but occasionally there's clips or there's news stories. I mean, just the other day, I'll give you a good example. There was a time where Andy Dick, who the video came out, it was leaked, he molested Ivanka on the set of Kimmel, and he had to be dragged off. And we were talking about that on my other podcast with.
He's gay.
Laura. Andy Dick, right? So there was a clip.
He's gay.
There was a clip that was relevant to the 2 Live Jew podcast where he goes on an anti-Semitic rant against Howard Stern, and he talks about he's a hook-nosed Jew and all this stuff. And I was looking for that clip, and it was as if it had been magically deleted from the internet.
You know, I think I saw it. What he did was he was touching her foreleg.
Yeah, but I was looking
like
for the anti-Semitic rant, that one.
Oh, the rant.
And it was
back.
It was an older one. It was back to 2012 or so. So it's been on the internet for a long time. But Ernie, it was as if it was deleted with like magic. It was gone. It was wiped from the internet. I searched 10 or 15 pages of Google. It was nowhere to be found. And I know how to use the internet. I'm not some moron.
Oh, you know where to go? Go to archive.org.
Yes. So I finally found a clip using those sorts of methods that I had been looking for ages of none other than Robert Swan Mueller. And here's a clip of Mueller that I think everybody should hear, just in case they have any final idea that maybe Mueller's an honest player. You know, and I can understand that, but just listen to this clip and then try to tell me that Mueller is honest. Here's Robert Mueller.
As Director Tenet has pointed out, Secretary Powell presented evidence last week that Baghdad has failed to disarm its weapons of mass destruction, willfully attempting to evade and deceive the international community. Our particular concern is that Saddam Hussein may supply terrorists with biological, chemical, or radiological material.
There's Robert Mueller, the trustworthy bulwark of truth, talking about how Saddam's got WMDs and it is incumbent upon us to invade and occupy Iraq and then rebuild it from scratch for some reason after we do that. There it is. There it is. So, you know, if anybody has any remaining doubts about our central thesis on Mueller, that he's a lying sack of you-know-what, just go back and listen to that clip.
Mm-hmm.
Just go back and listen to that clip, because this guy is as tied in with the deep state as anyone. He is as conflicted as you could ever be. He's as bad as they get, folks. He's as bad as they get. And that's why I want to transition to our another note. Something important, something we need to talk about, which is Lisa Page. Lisa Page has really flown below the radar lately. We've heard a lot about Strzok, her supposed lover, and there's something new with respect to Lisa Page that we've learned. And I was reading Powerline, which is a good blog to check out. I'll link to it down below. I'll add that to my notes here to link in the show notes down below. Great resource, and you can always see them. If you're listening on some weird app that they don't port through for some reason, you can always see the show notes on thewashingtonreporter.com/podcast, or just go to the homepage and for the particular podcast, they're right there. and it'll be down there. But last Friday, Lisa Page testified in a closed-door session before both the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, same body that grilled Peter Strzok. And by all accounts, she was a cooperative witness. Mark Meadows, the head of the committee, who's, he's far right. He's one of our guys. He said that her testimony was credible and said there is new information and that all of it's credible. Louis Gohmert, also, he's a member of the Freedom Caucus, fellow member alongside, Meadows and some of these more extreme right-wing guys that we like, says he has given insights to what was involved in the anti-Trump operation. New insights were given from Lisa Page. These are Republicans. These are not people that want to be nice to her. FYI, folks. FBI lawyers instructed Strzok not to answer a huge number of questions. And just so everyone knows, the questions that they're going to answer and ask are all turned over before the hearing starts. Do you know that, Ernie?
Oh, yeah.
They're all turned over. So every question that Strzok is to answer is handed over on paper to his lawyers weeks ahead of time. So the hearing is just the setting where it all happens, and they get their answers, and you get to see it. So to call it entirely a show or entirely acting would to be disingenuous. It's not. I mean, nobody knows what the answers are going to be. You do know what the questions are, so you do get that. But Strzok was very much dishonest, and everybody agreed on that. But his supposed girlfriend was not Lisa Page. They said she was very honest. She was straight to the point, and we didn't hear a lot from the Democrats on her. But it brings me to an idea, because... You
mean she didn't get a Purple Heart?
No Purple Heart for Lisa Page. Only for... Which is very misogynist and sexist.
That's what I was thinking. Sexist.
Sexist is right. So Page, can't testify, quote unquote, with 100% certainty about what she texted with Strzok. Same as what Strzok said. But she never alluded to this idea that they were lovers. She said she referred to him as a colleague. She referred to him as a coworker, but not as a lover, not as somebody she was romantically involved in. And I think about her testimony, and I look back at what some of the Republicans asked Strzok, and they never called her the girlfriend, except for Louis Gohmert when he went off script.
Did they ever come right out and ask her?
No, they never asked. Well, I don't know if they asked her explicitly because that was closed door, but I can only get leaks from that. I don't know for sure.
Right.
But I do know that I've looked through the text messages. There was a lot of text messages, Ernie. I mean, if nothing else, why did Mueller... So you remember Strzok said Mueller never asked him about any messages, period, right? That's what Strzok told them. If nothing else, don't you think Mueller might ask, hey, dude, how the hell do you send 400 messages a day to this broad? I mean, do you ever work? Do you ever, how do you manage to brush your teeth and take a shower and do all the normal stuff? It's crazy. Never asked him that. So that's kind of crazy to me. Now, I looked at the messages, and like 5 to 10,000 have been publicly released. And I can't find anything in the messages that would support the idea that they were romantically involved, Ernie. And
so no kissy or like heart emojis or anything like that?
You were great last night, or I can't wait to see you, baby, or none of that kind of stuff. And it's not as if they thought these text messages were going to be public. Remember, they've said over and over again, I thought these were private messages. So think about the advantage. I mean, if you're Peter Strzok and you're sitting there and you know that these text messages are coming out, as you would have known as early as August 2017, you would have known when you get removed by Mueller and he knows about the messages because the IG is starting to probe around. Imagine, would you maybe plant the story that you were having an affair with her, take her down with you, but do that because in that context, in the context of her being your girlfriend, the messages take a much more sinister note?
Think though, if they're not lovers, right, and they're going back and forth with these nefarious plans to try to bring down the president or the future president, then they're not just trying to impress each other, as lovers. They are actually roiling and broiling this whole thing. They're like these evil twins that are really trying to bring down the president.
Exactly. And that's indeed what they were, is they were Hillary's hatchet man. I mean, my whole theory the whole time is that Strzok did all this dirty work for crooked Hillary Clinton. I mean, he exonerated her. Remember, Strzok was the guy who changed the words from negligent to reckless. He changed the language in the letter that made her not get indicted, okay? He did that, while at the same time, he's planning his trip to London to go run Operation Crossfire Hurricane with his longtime buddy, CIA agent Stefan Halper. This guy's he's working overtime. Like, he's working 20 hours a day, okay? He's working overtime. Why is he doing that? My contention was always that he was under the impression that if he did this dirty work for Hillary, when she won, which she clearly thought she would, he would be made director of the FBI because she didn't like Comey. That was always my theory. It remains my theory. So if you look at this in the context of maybe, hey, just imagine for a second that they weren't lovebirds. Imagine that Strzok was smart enough that he knew everybody would glom onto that, even the right-wing media. They'd say, the FBI lovers, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, they're lovers. He knew we would glom onto that, and he knew that that would divert us from the real fact, which is maybe they weren't lovers. Maybe they were just evil, disgusting,
conniving
deep state bastards. Yeah. And the more that I look at this, the more that's what it looks like. It looks to me like the lovers thing is a planted story.
And testifies all kind of matter-of-factly because she's probably a sociopath. And that's just what comes out. No emotion, just straight answers.
Yes. Yes.
And she's got nothing to lose.
Indeed.
As a matter of fact, she's probably got everything to gain by telling the truth.
Exactly. Exactly. On the money. So what I'm asking people to consider as they're listening is maybe they were not in a relationship. Maybe Page and Strzok were just co-workers in this conspiracy by the deep state to stop Trump and help Hillary. And they planted the story that they were lovers. Because where's the evidence that they were lovers, Ernie? We've got pictures of Strzok and his wife. They still live together. Their relationship seems to be going
media
just
keeps
fine.
on saying it.
The media keeps on saying it. That's the only evidence we have.
That's the evidence.
That's the evidence. And everybody says it in the media. And
lovers. And they were lovers.
Yes.
Over and over. You hear it 30 times a day.
But I've never heard it from them. I've never heard it from either one of them. And I've never heard it from Robert Mueller. And I've never heard it from FBI counsel. I've never heard it from anybody that's in a position to give an official firsthand statement on the matter. I haven't. I've only ever heard it from the media. And as I trace that line back and try to figure out where is the definitive start of they were lovers, do you know where the definitive start is? It's in Business Insider, in a story written by Natasha Bertrand, who now works for The Atlantic, who is a deep state reporter. I could tell you a lot about her. She's kind of stalked me. She's a weirdo. She now blocks me on Twitter, so I don't have to see her garbage anymore. MSNBC contributor. So that's where that whole thing about them being lovers got its legs. But in lieu of this latest testimony from her, and in lieu of going back in the text messages and not seeing any text messages that support the idea that they were lovers, I'm comfortable saying now that maybe they weren't. And if you go back and listen to the testimony of Strzok, listen to Gowdy's questioning. I'm not going to play it here because it's like 24 minutes in total of Gowdy asking questions. It's really long. We don't have enough time. But go and listen to it. And every time he refers to the text message, he says, when you were texting your colleague, what did you mean by this? He always says that. He pauses and he says, almost like if you were doing an air quote, but just listen to the audio. If you were listening, when you were texting your colleague,
that pregnant pause.
Yeah, exactly. And the change in
pun
pitch.
Intended.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me. And of course, the other piece of this is, listen, either his wife is comfortable being cuckolded by him or something, because they're still living together. They're lovey-dovey. The Daily Mail has pictures of them leaving their apartment in D.C. or their townhouse in D.C. and driving each other to work, and everything looks lovey-dovey and just fine in their neck of the woods.
That's probably why he was stone-faced when Gohmert accused him of being an adulterer.
Exactly, and smirking because he knows deep down, you dumb.
The smirking, and then the waving of his shoulders, and then the little.
I tricked you guys.
Circular motion in his head.
We were never lovers. And honest to God, I mean, if you're gonna have a girlfriend, you can at least pick a cute one. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's the best you can do. But I'd think if you're gonna have a side hoe, she might as well be attractive.
Well, how many great-looking babes are there going to be in the FBI office?
I don't know. I've heard the younger agents are oftentimes hot.
Yeah.
Have you heard this? I've heard this. I've never met one, but I hear
on TV they always are.
On TV they always are. See, that's the dream girl. You date a girl who's not an FBI agent but plays a deep state FBI agent on TV. That's what I need, Ernie. That's what I've got to put out. I'll put it in my Tinder bio. Looking for a chick that plays an FBI agent on TV. Please swipe right if that's you. That's what I'm going to put in my bio. Yeah. So. We'll see. But, the media continues as we've got that brewing and we've got lines of inquiry into that matter. We've got the media still losing their minds over all of this. Is it safe to say that the kids in cages thing is dead, right? It died. Did that story die? It's dead.
Yeah. That narrative is gone. It's played out.
Isn't it funny how we've been doing this long enough now? This is our 71st episode that now we get to these things and we're like, yeah, what do you think the shelf life is on this one? 2.5 weeks. And we're usually pretty much dead on. Because it's not that we're geniuses. We just watch this stuff enough. It's, you kind of get it. You do this enough. You think about it critically and you
right. So the treason thing will probably last for another few days, maybe through the weekend.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Something else will develop probably Sunday.
Yep. That's what I'm thinking.
We have to move on to a new crisis.
A new crisis. But I did have a new clip on the kids in cages thing. I want to listen to Obama's statement on the kids. We do know that Obama put the kids in cages and all that. But let's listen to his statement because, you know, maybe Obama was the one that really put them in cages. But we know that he loved immigrants and he loved immigrant children. And he would always tell the stories. You remember the stories. Just the other day in Sioux Falls, Idaho, I spoke to a young girl named Maria. And she's from Guatemala. A good girl. You know, he'd tell these stories, these fake made-up stories that were verifiably false in many cases. Even the mainstream media would fact-check him on them and say, no, we couldn't find her. Well, here's Obama's statement on the kids coming from Central America.
Message don't come. Oh, our message absolutely is don't send your children unaccompanied on trains or through a bunch of smugglers. That is our direct message to the families in Central America. Do not send your children to the borders. If they do make it, they'll get sent back. More importantly, they may not make it. Let's talk.
Notice he's saying don't send your children, not don't bring your children. That's a distinction that you have to pay attention to.
No, it is
don't
important.
send your children. Don't send them off with the mules to to go across the border. Not unless you get enough money. Payola, then it might be worth.
So what does that mean? I mean, let's really zoom in here because this is why podcasts are good and cable news sucks because you can stop. Like cable news, they don't even stop to breathe. I mean, my dad does it. You know, you guys watch my dad on Fox all the time. But you breathe in one deep breath, you machine gun talk for 3 minutes, and then it's boom, next segment. That's just the format. It's the way it goes. You know, that's why Rachel Maddow's show never wins because she goes on these 40-minute monologues. It's not what people come to see when they watch cable news. But we can zoom in and unpack this. What does he mean, send your kids? Well, if you're in Guatemala or Venezuela, you can sell your kid for as low as $500, as high as $1,500 or $2,000 US dollars. And keep in mind, that's like, down there, that's like 6 months' pay in some places. I mean, Honduras and things, that's a lot of money. And you can sell your kid to a coyote. If you're a drug addict or a homeless person, they've got their problems too, and kids get sold here all the time. So let's not pretend that this is a unique thing. And you can sell your kid to a coyote. What happens to the kid? Well, after they're sufficiently raped and beat into submission and gotten addicted to drugs, they sell the kid
across the desert.
Dragged across the desert. But here's what they do: when you're in Mexico, there's packages to get smuggled into the U.S. The cartels run a big business, and the drugs are just kind of a bonus to the human trafficking and the organ trafficking. People don't know about the organ trafficking, Ernie. The cartels smuggle organs, too. Did you know that? Organs, human organs. It's a big business. So when you get your package from the cartel, you have an option. You can buy the gold package, the platinum package, the VIP package. And the best package you can buy as a Mexican is it's expedited, so you get to leave like tomorrow. That's great. They give you fake papers that say you're Central American. That way you can declare asylum when you get here. And if you pay extra, this is not cheap. It's about $5,000 or $6,000 US dollars in Mexico. Not cheap. This is life savings. If you pay even extra, they'll include a child or two. And you get to bring the child with you. You drag them up through the desert across the border. And when you arrive, you say that they're your kid. And then you're guaranteed to stay. Like once you bring the kid, you've got the fake Central American papers. Now you're guaranteed to get in. Okay? So you pay a little extra, but you get a lot more certainty. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is what happens. That's why Obama says, and I'll play it one more time.
Message don't come. Oh, our message absolutely is don't send your children unaccompanied.
Don't send your children unaccompanied. You couldn't be any more clear.
On trains or through a bunch of smugglers. That is our direct message to the families in Central America. Do not send your children to the borders. If they do make it, they'll get sent back. More importantly, they may not make it. Let's talk.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ernie. When I listen to Obama clips, it's funny because so many times Obama would say things that are identical to what Trump's saying, almost word for word in some cases. And there's none of the meltdown in the media. None of the meltdown. Just like you had with George Bush and Bill Clinton, or George Bush and Obama. Same thing. But, it almost does make you miss the era when the president could say something and you could debate it without instantly being called a traitor, a homophobe, a xenophobe, a racist. It does almost make you miss those days.
My favorite is there are phobophobes.
A phobophobe. That is where you fear itself, right? I guess, by definition. So it does make you miss those days, doesn't it? I mean, do you remember when Obama would say something, and you could have a debate about it, you could talk about it with people, and it wouldn't be this mental illness meltdown where they'd pour their coffee on you and start screaming and yelling and having a temper tantrum. I mean, that's what we watch every day. Trump can say virtually anything. He could say good morning, and the media will be determined to have a temper tantrum about it.
Treasonous!
Treason! 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 Racism! Treason! I mean, that's really the rotation now. That's the only thing that really gets any traction anymore, is they go from the Me Too to the racism to the treason, Russia, back to Me Too, back to treason, back to Russia. I mean, they're running out of steam here on this Russia stuff. I think it'll peter out. Let's see, he's going to have him for the White House, but I think they're going to run a North Korea op that'll be short-lived afterwards. They'll say North Korea is building nukes again or something. Mm-hmm. But that's tough because it's tough to fake
they tried that last week and that didn't fly.
Well, it's tough to fake it. That's why. Because how do you fake it? Because North Korea either launched a missile or they didn't. I mean, it's tough to fake. They can try. They can put together fake satellite images leaked from Intel officials and all this garbage that they do. But it is tough to fake. They'll try. You know, so I expect
they're trying the treason route because Nazi has really worn its course. So treason sounds like, you know, maybe they'll start turning it into some kind of fake constitutional thing or come up with some other, you know, obscure law and then try to.
So they've got the Supreme Court stuff. But do you know what they're going to do to interfere with that? Because they know they can't stop it. So they just got to use it as an excuse to run propaganda. I think, you know, based on my analysis of the rotation, no genius here. I don't have any premonition or crystal ball like Larry Sabato, who predicted Hillary would win. He's got a crystal ball, but I don't. But here's the thing. I think the next one is they're going to have to roll out another group of women. They're going to have to roll out another Me Too against Trump coming up here shortly.
So recycle, start from the beginning?
Yeah, not Stormy, but you know, I think they're going to have, I don't know, an apprentice contestant. Maybe they can round up enough money for an apprentice contestant to come out, or
just take a crisis that's about maybe 6 weeks to 10 weeks away because the American people don't have the intellectual capacity to remember that far back.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be another.
That's not the way I feel, by the way. I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, it's going to be another cadre of women that they roll out, and that's what I'm thinking. Right after they get a 3-day cycle out of
Little Rocket Man,
then they'll go to the women. That's what I predict. We'll see.
I don't know. They have to start getting a little bit more creative.
Well, it's just tough because, you know, they need a punchline. They need a meme. They need something that can fit in, you know, a picture. You know, it's funny, too. As I was browsing through Twitter today, I came across an attack that was run against Kennedy. You know, I talk about how you just talked about it was the last episode, wasn't it? And you talked about how they would have called John F. Kennedy alt-right.
Far right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, it turns out the far left group ran a poster against, you know, back then it was posters and buttons that you hang on your shirt. And they put out a thing of John F. Kennedy. I'll link to it in the show notes. And they said, wanted for treason. This man is wanted for treasonous activities against the United States. 1, betraying the Constitution, which he swore to uphold. He is turning the sovereignty of the U.S. over to communist-controlled United Nations. He is betraying our friends, Cuba, Katanga, Portugal, and befriending our enemies, Poland and Yugoslavia. He has been wrong on innumerable issues affecting the security of the United States, i.e. the Berlin Wall. He has been lax in enforcing communist registration laws. And they came up with all these attacks against him, claiming that he's either a Russian operative or too mean to Russia, but it was confused. They had actually both in the same poster, which was kind of funny. But this is nothing new. You know, the medium changes, Ernie. The medium changes. The technology has changed around, you know, Twitter versus hanging a button versus, you know, bumper stickers and things. But it's really all the same. I mean, if you go back to the attacks against George Bush, if you go back to the attacks against Reagan and Bush, the beginning, you realize that, you know, the technology changes, but it's the same thought leaders at the top. It's the same people. You know, I tweeted out a funny article from the Washington Post. And of course, it didn't format quite right for Twitter because it's such an old article in the Washington Post. But this is from November 15th, 2001. I'm thrilled he's here, Bush says as Putin visits his Texas ranch. But it was no big deal. Putin came. Putin came over. They rode mountain bikes. They hung out. This is what I want to see. I want to see the Iranian mullahs come over to Mar-a-Lago and hang out in the pool and hang out. I mean, God, it's you know, Ernie, it's better than launching missiles and going over there and getting my leg blown off. I don't know. Just my opinion. I think time will tell. White House spokesman Ari Fleischer said this morning. The president believes there have been very positive developments on that front, Fleischer said, but he did not cite any. Do you know who this story was written by? Peter Baker. Peter Baker. Peter Baker is now one of the kings of fake news over at the New York Times. He doesn't work for the Washington Post anymore. But it's just funny because there's really nothing new under the sun. It's all the same attacks. Do you want to hear about a book Peter Baker wrote in 2005?
What's that?
Kremlin Rising, Vladimir Putin's Russia and the End of Revolution. So, I mean, the point is the talking points, the language, it's all interchangeable. You can go back and read Peter Baker's book from 2005, and you'll say, holy crap, this looks like the same stuff they're saying now. You can go back and listen to, you know, a coverage of Bush on any channel, CNN, MSNBC, going back to 2006, and it's the same stuff. Of course it's gotten worse. Of course they've gotten crazier. Of course they've been more desperate to get their Twitter punchline in because the mediums have changed, but it's all the same stuff. It hasn't changed all that much. That's kind of the final point I guess I'd want to make here as we wrap up. But what do you think, Ernie? I mean, it does, when you go back and actually watch this stuff from 2006, and I ask people to, just watch it. Go, you know, take 5 minutes. What do you have to lose? It's fun. It's interesting. Maybe I'm just such a nerd when it comes to this stuff that I'm the only one that can have fun with it, but I think it's fun. I don't know. I liked studying this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the thing that we have to keep an eye on going forward is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and some of the things that she's been saying. You know, her talking points are starting to come out. But that's not the interesting point. The interesting thing is that there are really no Democrats that are saying anything, you know, refuting these just outright communistic Marxist views. So by not saying anything, the only Dems that are actually coming out against her are from deep red states, maybe a handful, 2 or 3. I think Fox has covered them. But all the other Dems are saying nothing. So by their silence, to me, is saying that they agree with her, that they're embracing these far left. I mean, this isn't even far left. This is beyond far left.
Remember, too, you can sign up for the club, but you don't really get your official membership card from the Democratic Socialists until you hate Jews. Remember, that's like
right.
So, I mean, Hitler, the National Socialists, sound familiar? The Democratic Socialists is rough translation, basically. And so just the other day, she says, Israel needs to go. The Jews need to leave the Middle East. They're occupiers. And she said, oh, I misspoke. Okay.
Well, she was challenged on it, and then she couldn't retort because she knew nothing about it, and then admitted that I'm really not an expert.
Yeah, you're not an expert. No kidding. I mean, this girl's your average 28-year-old
you're a 28-year-old former
bimbo.
Bartender.
Yeah, I mean,
coming from a privileged family,
kind of
where the average family income is $4 million a year.
Yeah.
The girl from the Bronx.
Yeah, the girl from the Bronx, the girl from the hood. You know, just give me a break. You know, it's great.
She's going to be the girl from the Bronx who's going to roll up in a Maserati and you know, Prada shoes and Gucci.
Yeah, just like Hillary. I mean, look at the outfits Hillary wears. They look like crap. They're Communist Party garb. You know, they're Maoist, actually. She wears a Mao outfit.
Yeah.
I mean,
the Mao tent.
Why does Hillary Clinton wear a Mao Zedong Halloween costume, but it's made by Gucci, and it costs, like, her outfits are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 a piece, usually. But anyway, I hope everybody has enjoyed. I will link to everything in the show notes, as usual. The only thing I would ask is make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Go down below, subscribe, share the links, you know, go out and bring us one new listener. And we're just going to keep growing this thing and bringing you new content. We've got some fantastic new sponsors actually signing on here over the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested in sponsoring, if you've got a small business, you've got a product or a service that you think the listeners of this podcast might be interested in, reach out. You know, send us an email. You know where to reach me on Twitter. Just DM. You'll get through, and you know, we can talk. So it's fantastic to bring you guys this great content. We'll be back, of course, on Monday. We'll be back on Monday, same time, same place. WashingtonReporter.com. It's been fun, and in the meantime, you know, stay safe and stay away from the fake news because it's only going to hurt your mental and physical health. Ernie, it's been fun. We'll see everybody back on Monday. Thanks for listening. See you next time.